Hey guys, I want to welcome you back to another episode on J of All Trades. Today I'm going to continue this project in my bathroom, and I have already completed all my waterproofing in this shower and I'm ready to install some tiles. So I'm going to show you guys some do's and don'ts with installing tiles, and I'm going to show you my whole process and how everything went. The tile that I'll be using for this install is 12 by 24 inch porcelain tile, and it is 3/8 inch thick Italian tile. And so we're gonna get started on this. The first thing you wanna do is you wanna sort of map out exactly where you wanna start, and you wanna make sure everything is nice and level and square. So what I did was I made a guideline with my level and made a mark just so I can have a guide there. And then I used a longer level to draw a longer line straight across. And this is going to be the beginning of my tile. And once you begin, there's no way to go back and change that. And so you want to make sure that that's done right. I'm using a 1/2 inch square notch trowel to apply my tin set here. And that teeth is perfect for large tiles like 12 by 24 inch tiles. So if you're working with smaller tiles, you'll want to use the appropriate spaced teeth for the trowel. It's clear that I don't apply tin set very often, and so for someone who has more practice with this, you'd be able to spread this stuff out much faster than I do. Since I'm going to be working with large, thick tiles, I'm going to be back buttering my tiles and making sure that I got a nice even spread here, just so it can adhere properly to the wall. This creates a much better bond between the tile and the wall. So I'm going to install a tile here, and then I'll show you guys exactly how to remove it and put it somewhere else if you need to. Because let's say you make a mistake and you want to remove a tile and then relocate it somewhere else. It's very simple. All you have to do is just apply some tin set to where you want to move the tile, and then you're going to take a flathead screwdriver and then slide it behind the tile. You don't want to yank at this. You just want to kind of rock back and forth and just feel it out until you start feeling that tin set releasing. Because if you try to force this, it's going to break the tile. So you're going to keep rocking back and forth until the tile pops right off. Now when you first take it off, you're going to have all this mess behind it. So what you want to do is you want to take your trowel and you want to clean out most of that there and then put it right back into the bucket. Once you fully get that cleaned out, you can just apply it right over the new tin set in the spot that you want it to be in. This is useful, especially if you want to use a different tile in that area. Maybe you didn't like the pattern on that particular tile and you wanted to use a different one. Or maybe your tile size was incorrect and you want to just replace it with the right one. Here I'm just using a wooden wedge in the bottom to position the tile and just level it off with the level and make sure it's square, because once it gets started, this is going to be my guide for the entire wall. Once again, I strongly recommend back buttering your tiles, especially if you're working with large heavy tiles like I am. You really want to make sure that it adheres to the wall very well. For this install, I'm going to be using some traditional spacers that are 1/8 inch apart. And to be honest with you, I would recommend using some better spacers because these spacers were really annoying to work with. Periodically, I'm just checking to make sure that everything is level and plumb, and it is. I strongly recommend getting those spacers that allow you to level the surface of the tiles together just to make sure that they line up, because these spacers are much more difficult to work with. If you need to cut any tiles, make sure that you remove any tin set that's on the wall because it may start drying. If it starts drying, it will not allow the tile to adhere properly to the wall. For this project, I'm using a 7-inch rigid tile cutter, and it is a wet saw. And here I'm just gonna make my measurements, and I'm gonna make a little mark with my Sharpie here. And don't worry about the Sharpie, because once you cut it, that will be gone. The blade on this saw is a diamond blade, and it's perfect for cutting porcelain tile, especially thick 3/8 inch tile like this. And it does a really good job of handling the dust because it is a wet saw, so the dust is virtually zero. This saw has a guide brace on it, so I'm basically bracing my tile up against it, and you do not want to force the tile through. You just want to use a little bit of force to just feed it through. Continue to feed the piece of tile that's up against the brace until it's fully through the back. Make sure that you have an old cloth that you can throw away at the end of this project, because you're going to be using this cloth to wipe off all the tiles that you cut. To prevent this end piece from moving here, I put a wooden wedge on the back just to prevent the tile from shifting out of place, and once it's dry, that can be removed. Once again, remember to clean off any excess thin set over the tiles because you don't want that drying on you. And so now I've established my first row of tiles, and this is going to be my guide to carry my entire wall all the way up until I get to the top. So it's very crucial to get the first row right. Now it's time to space out the tiles for the second row, and you want to do this in thirds. So 1/3 of 24 inches would be at 8 inches. So the next level of tile is going to get started at 8 inches in. Following this pattern is great for having a really good looking pattern in your tiling. Here I'm just drawing a line with my level to show you a guideline of where that tile will start. Once you get your tile in place, you want to remember to use your spacers and continue to go up in the same pattern. I like to also periodically check with the level to make sure I'm doing well. You're going to notice that when you apply some tiles, there's going to be some thin set that pushes out past the tiles. That's fine. All you got to do is just clean it out and then take the edge of your scraper and go in between the two tiles and remove any thin set. Here I'm using a rubber mallet to gently tap this tile to make sure that it's flat with the other tiles. This is where those other spacers would have came in handy. Here again, I'm going to follow the rule of thirds, and now we're going to go to 16 inches in because the one below it was 8 inches in. And now I'm going to draw a guideline here, and you guys can see exactly where that lines up. Based on the location of this tile, I'm going to do a dry fit here, and then I'll use a marker to just draw behind against the line, and you're going to see where the cutout is going to be, and I'll be removing that section. You're going to continue doing the same thing all the way around the niche until you fully get your tiles in place. You're going to notice that I got a different color spacer here, and those are more rigid than the white ones. The white ones were just too soft and allowing the tile to move around too much. I highly recommend getting great quality spacers because those white traditional spacers were not doing the job. For this strip of tile that I cut here, I had to use 3 pieces of tape just to hold it in place because I wasn't able to put it on top of another tile. And to prevent it from shifting out of place, I had to use these 3 pieces of tape. Surprisingly, the tape worked well. Now that we're ready to put the last piece around the niche, we're going to start prepping some tile edging trim for the niche. And basically, I'm just going to take some measurements here, and I'll be using a piece of 2x4 as a guide to help me cut the trim. Now, the reason why I'm using this is because when you try to cut this trim without this, the trim will bend and it will damage. So you want to use this piece of block here to just support. So as you can see, I'm going to be using 45-degree angles to go into the border of that niche. And here I'm just basically placing the block right on top of where I need to cut. And I'm going to be cutting a 45 straight up against that block, and this way this piece will not be damaged. You really want to lower the blade slowly into the trim, and there you have it. When you flip this around, you're going to have a nice perfect 45-degree angle, and we're going to cut another 45 going the opposite direction, and this will complete our first piece of trim. Then you're just going to rinse and repeat until you get all the pieces to go around your entire niche. Now that we have all our trim, I cut some tile to go right into the back, and I'm going to start filling in the niche with all my tiling. And here I chose to go half and half because a full length of 24-inch tile did not fit in the niche. Here I'm prepping the niche for the corners, and I'm going to be cutting some strips of tile here to go all the way around the niche. We'll be using the trim all the way around these tiles, and that should give us a really nice border to go around. And so we're going to take these strips here, we're going to place the pieces of tile and couple them with the trim, and this will create a nice finished look. So looking at it from this angle, you can see that those 45s will meet up nicely, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side and place the trim right in place behind the tile. Here I'm even experimenting with placing the trim first and then putting the tile after, and that worked out just fine as well. And here you can see that I'm just lining them up with the 45s and putting them in place and then setting them into the tin set. Here I strongly recommend taping the edges, and this is to prevent them from shifting out of place, so when they start drying and setting, they'll be in the right place that they need to be. On this piece of tile, I actually cut out a notch for the electric for my lighting here on the niche, and I still have my noise reduction earmuffs on. I've been using that to cut the tile because the tile cutter is really loud. Remember, safety is always first. And so here I'm putting the last piece, and I'm just sort of working them into the tin set and leveling them out. And finally, the bottom pieces are going in, and my niche will be complete with the tiles. Here I'm continuing upwards, and I'm continuing to space out my tiles and take out all the excess, and we're just going to continue working our way until we get to where we need to. For this row, I'm going to complete this, and then I'll be working on some crown molding that will be going all the way around the shower and throughout the entire bathroom. So keep an eye out for that video, because I'll be doing a video on installing that crown molding. So here I have completed the first wall, and I am cleaning up and ready to go to move on to the next wall. And so far I'm really liking the way that this is looking, and I can't wait for it to get done. Now for the next wall, I'll be using a level to draw a line at the edge of the tub. This is going to be where my tile edge trim ends. As you can see, I have all the crown molding installed, and I'm ready to go. This edge trim that I'm going to be ending off with here is going to be placed up against my guidelines, and as you can see, I have some tin set already in there, and so I'm going to work this into the tin set and let that hold it in place. And of course, as I place tiles on top, the back buttered tin set works its way into that trim as well and holds it in place. As you work your way up, you want to make sure that that trim continues to line up with your guideline, because that's going to make sure that everything is level and straight. You want to continuously check that trim at every single row to make sure it's in the right place and it didn't move. It can easily move out of place by you just shifting and pushing tiles around. Once I completed this wall, I could see exactly where I needed to put tiles to meet with the crown molding. And so now we're ready to put in those strips of tile at the top. Now I've fully completed 2 walls in the shower all the way up to the crown molding, and I'm really liking the way that this is looking. Now it's time to complete the last wall. So this wall has fittings on it. This particular one is a tub faucet, and as you can see, I'm gonna need to be drilling a hole on this porcelain tile here, and I'll show you guys exactly how I'll do that. This is a diamond hole saw that I got from Home Depot, and I'm going to include a link in the description just in case you guys want to go out there and get it, and it's for tile and stone. And here you're going to see all the listings of everything that it can cut. Here on the side of the saw, you can see a hole where you can push out any of the pieces that you cut. And so we're going to put this thing to the test, and as you can see, this fits perfectly over here. So the first thing you want to do is you want to elevate the tile, so I put it on 3 pieces of wood here, and then you want to tape the face of the tile. This will help to avoid scratching the porcelain face tile. Next, we're going to mark where we're going to make our hole. So the center of my hole will be where that plus is. And now I'm going to be taking this hole saw, and I'm actually going to be centering it and drawing a circle around it. I'll be using that circle as a guide when I'm drilling. To properly drill this hole, I'm going to be using a spray bottle, and I'm going to be drilling it wet. The water acts as a coolant and a lubricant for the diamond bit. You're going to need a second person to apply this water and spray continuously while you're drilling. You don't want to start out drilling like this because, as you can see, the screw gun just continuously moves around and it scratches everything. You want to tilt the gun like this and then start making a notch sideways, and then once you make your notch, you can now move forward and go upright. You want to continuously apply water throughout this entire process, and as you can see, it's starting to lubricate and make it much easier to go through this. You don't want to put too much pressure on this, you just want to let the bit do its job and it'll eventually go through. And as you can see, that was a perfect cut. Now we can remove the tape and install the tile. Now we're going to install this tile and we're going to line it up to the tile to the right. And I'm using some wooden wedges here to hold it in place and keep it nice and plumb with the tile that's next to it. And here I'm putting this trim right on here, and we're going to continue to do the same thing on this side as we did on the last side. Now I'm just going to work my way up until I get to the valve. So I finally made it to the valve, and I'm going to need to be cutting a rectangle in one of these tiles. And I'm going to show you exactly how we're going to do that. The first thing you want to do is to tape the area that you're going to be cutting, just like we did for the hole. Now we're going to make the marks where we're going to be cutting out. I have a protective valve cover that came with the valve set, and so I'm going to be using that as a guide to just trace out exactly where I need to cut. Here I'm going to be using a spray bottle to lubricate and to cool the diamond blade that I'll be using with this cutoff tool. And this diamond blade is actually made by Rigid as well, and I'm going to include a link in the description for you guys just in case you want to go out there and get it. But this is a diamond blade, and it is specifically designed to cut porcelain tile as well as many other stones. You really want to start out slow, and you want to let the blade do its job. You do not want to force the blade. Now when you're doing the face of the tile, you do not want to go past any of the lines that you made. If you let the blade go too deep and you get past those lines at the ends, you're going to see it in the face of the tile. So you just want to make sure that you stop short of the ends of those lines. And as you go in, you're going to continue to lubricate as you cut. And this also helps the blade to stay cool and prevents it from overheating. If you're having a hard time seeing your lines, you can simply just brush away some of the debris and continue where you left off. Once again, you don't want to go past these lines. Especially on this shorter side, it's very easy to go past those lines. You want to avoid that because then you'll have to cut a new piece of tile. So here I'm just going just enough to get to the end. Now as I flip it over, you can see exactly where I went through. Now on this side of the tile, you can actually go a little bit past the lines because no one will be seeing this side of the tile. And this will be able to ensure that you're going to go through the front of the tile. So here I'm just going slowly, little by little, until I get this piece to fully cut out. And when it's fully cut, it'll just drop to the bottom. And there it is, guys. It just dropped out. And now when we remove the tape, we will see that it's a nice clean cut. And the only place we really went past was in the back. And so this tile is ready to be installed. When you're installing these pieces that were cut, you really want to take your time and just maneuver it in without forcing it, because the last thing you need is this thing breaking on you and you're going to have to cut it again. Once that tile was in place for the valve, I continued upwards, and now I'm working my way around this other fitting for a handheld shower. Here a full tile fit right under it, so I was able to put a full row before getting to that fitting. I then cut a tile and then drilled a hole in it to fit it around that fitting, and then fit all my tiles all the way up until I got to the top. Here it is, guys. I finally completed tiling this entire shower and it is looking really good. I cannot wait to get it grouted. So stay tuned because I'll be coming out with a video to show you guys exactly how I grout this tile. and you can also check out my full playlist with this full bathroom renovation. So I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel so you can continue to get more videos like this one. And I'll see you guys on the next one.